We begun a series titled Astral Theology and Shamanism, unveiling the law of duality in Christianity and other religions. I read this book probably 8 or 10 years ago, and it's one of the most fascinating, intriguing, and interesting books I've ever read in my expanded way of thinking. I've been very exploratory. I've been interrogating my own self and excavating and investigating truth and light. And I'm from a classical Pentecostal background. Pentecostalism is the edgy part of Christianity, like Kabbalah is the edgy part of Judaism, and Sufism is the edgy or more risky, mystical aspect of Islam. In every religion, there are the mystics in them, the shaman, who are those who generally do what you would consider the magic part, that special, esoteric, euphoric, transcendent aspect of the spirituality of the founder of any particular movement in history. And there's always been men and women, but the women have not been noted as much because of the chauvinism of the culture. Astral theology, the term astral theology is used in the context of the 18th and 19th century scholarship aiming at the discovery of the original religion, particularly primitive monotheism. Original religion or original religions, they were based on things that humans saw that they couldn't understand, like the stars and the planets or the skies or the clouds. A lot of things that came from above, sunlight, wind. Those were the first idols or the first gods. And over the years, that idea has stuck with most religious people. So my Pentecostalism was about transcendence. It was about going other places and spaces in consciousness, sometimes in a trance, transcendence. Going into a trance, and the ancient peoples of the world, whether that's Chinese or whether that's Europeans, whether it's Africans or Indians from the actual East Indian culture, or American natives that were once called Indians because Columbus thought he was coming to India when he came, of course, to the North American continent. The medicine men. Medicine, in fact, the Greek word for sorcery, one of the words is pharmakia, or pharmacies. The treatment or use of drugs. Hallucinative drugs, mind-altering drugs, but they came from the herbs of the earth, plants, plant-based treatments. That's how the shaman or the medicine men or the healers of the cultures would treat sickness. They would go into meditation to get through divination some kind of medication to address the pain and pathos of human beings being human. So religion will probably never go away. Astral theology, astro is the Greek word for star. Theology is really God logic or God language. Theo is the Greek word for God, logos, logic, language, utterance, logistics, reason, rationale, what they call ontological aspects of theology, the study of being or isness. We've always questioned who we are and why we're here. How do we get here? How do we land on this planet? ComeMonday is the movie that suggested my interest in other things than what I had been taught all my life. I just had this sense that there was more. That I felt a strong sense in my spirit as a human being that I should impact the world for good or for God. And English is the only language whose term for good is very similar and almost extracted from the term God. No other language has God and good identical like that. But ours does. So when you say good, you're thinking something that is godly or something that is divine or something that is God-like. That's the English mentality. Every good and perfect gift comes from above. There's always been this aboveness. It's called anthropos in Greek, man. Humankind, the upward-looking one. I named my ministry, 1977, 41 years ago, or I call it higher dimensions, which is higher domains and higher measurements and higher angles and angels and sometimes abstract access to the other world. I've always had this incredible desire, even as a child, to somehow tap into otherness, Maybe my soul was homesick for the pre-incarnate reality that we call heaven, or something that happened before we got here. I've said for years now that it seems to me that we may have agreed in some pre-incarnate, pre-enfleshment. Before we had, and I base it on a passage of Scripture that I've always been intrigued with, in the book of Jeremiah, the first chapter, where God says to Jeremiah, that Jeremiah is describing a conversation. He was a prophet. He was a mystic. He was a shaman in the Jewish sense. He would close his eyes or have some kind of revelation, go someplace, and he had these conversations with God. And he recorded them, or the conversations were recorded, and when he recited them, and God said to him, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you and called you and anointed you and appointed you. I called you out. I summoned you. I put my hand or hands or fingerprints or faith prints, sometimes my footprints on you. A lot of people who are not necessarily religious believe they're touched by God or touched by the gods or touched by spirit or infinity or something powerfully scientific, but they feel guided and guarded and charged to do something with their lives. Those are the people usually who invent things. People like Thomas Edison, his wife had to come and beg him to eat. He would be fasting and not know it. He wouldn't leave the laboratory because he was so close to a revelation of something. And I read the life of Dr. Martin Luther, George Washington Carver, the man who spoke with flowers. He was a mystic. He used to say to God, he called God Master. He'd say, one time he said, Master, why did you make the world? And he said, God said, well, the answer to that question is too broad for you to even contain. He said, well, why did you make man? And I read this in his journals. He said, well, God said, well, the answer to that is really outside your realm too. Even if I gave you the answer, it wouldn't make sense. He said, well, then, if you want to tell me why you made the universe, you want to tell me why you made man, tell me why you made the peanut. And God said, now you're on your level. And he gave him, 300 different ways to use the peanut. He spoke to the peanut, or the peanut, he says, spoke to him. Flowers spoke to him. Nature, he became one with nature. And out of peanut comes cosmetics, baby powder, inks, dyes. He came up with all these different inventions out of the peanut. He basically said that he spoke with the peanut. I believe that the universe has a voice, and that the universe has a choice, and that as we grow spiritually, and I get this out of my, I was sort of charted for this kind of ambient thinking as a Pentecostal, because we believed in going into stages of sort of almost catatonic, where we would be in another realm. And but I grew up around that, so that was never strange to me. If somebody would fall out and close their eyes, or their eyes would roll back in their head, and they would start speaking in tongues and quickly, and my mom did it, or her mom did, my dad and grandparents and great-grandfather, it was just part of our culture. So it was never strange to me, but we were embarrassed about it because we knew other people didn't understand it. But they would not always foretell, but forthtell, but sometimes they actually told the future. And when I got older, of course, and began to study other religions, I realized that this practice was common throughout human history. Astral theology, and my mother used to, I remember they would cut their hair at certain seasons, and they would plant at certain seasons. Humans have done that for years, based on the season, whether that was winter, spring, summer, or fall. All you got to do is call, and I'll be there. That's a song. But, we talk about the seasons of life, or the sessions, the different trials and tests, and the different tides of life, time and tides and seasons. We've always been intrigued because I believe what some of the ancient shamans said, that we're not just human beings, I'm paraphrasing it, looking for spiritual experiences. We are spirit having an earthly encounter. We have a mind, we have a body, but we are spirit, not just a spirit, we are essence. We're inextricably connected to all that is, because there's life and animation in all things, even the inanimate things. And we sense it. You can feel the energy in the air around a tree, around a flower, around an animal. I'm going to the sea soon. I love to be near the Pacific Ocean in California. I was born out there 65 years ago, and I love the water. I love the ocean. I love and I'm of the Pisces sign in the zodiac sign. Pisces love the deep, expansive seas and going to the depths of nothingness and airiness and water. Water is mystical and mystery. It's a metaphor for spirit. And we are 80% water when we come out of our mother's womb. And we remain 50 or 60% all of our lives. Our brains are 80% water. 70 to 80% of the planet is water. Mist, moisture, spirit. That's who we really are, but we've been neglecting it. Sometimes we've been replacing spirit for religion, and we've not accessed the full expression of the soul. So at this time in my life, I've done the dancing and rejoicing, and I mean literally dancing like the whirling dervishes of the Sufistic aspect of Islam. I saw them here in Tulsa, sitting next to a rabbi and a Catholic bishop. We were all in an interfaith dialogue, and they let us go down to the performing arts and see the whirling dervishes. I'd never seen them, but we were just carrying on casual conversation. The moment they started dancing, spinning very softly and lightly, it just instantly captured all of our attention. My eyes instantly filled up with tears because I remembered that same, what I would call anointing or ointment in my soul when I was a child. And I nudged the rabbi and Rabbi Fitzgerald and Bishop Slattery of the Catholic Church. I said, did you guys know this was what this was going to be? And they said, no. We had no idea, and my kids were there. They were small, but my wife and I said, look at this. I could feel it up in the balcony at the Performing Arts Center here in Tulsa. I related to that as a child, and it took me someplace. And I thought, can Muslims and Sufis and other cultures or people access that in-between space? Because they would dance, they would come out and just spin like a top and then stop suddenly and step back into their place. No dizziness, no sweat. They didn't break out. And they just did this. And we watched them. There were no words spoken. It was it was like being high or something. So, and I've never been high in the sense that y'all probably been high. But I've felt sort of out-of-body euphoric experiences when I come from church as a little kid. So I've never felt, even though I'm expanded consciousness, I'm more scholarly and intellectual. I've grown. I've graduated from college, and studied in college and university and masters and programs at the Chicago Theological Seminary and other places. I cannot forget or deny the spiritual essence and access that I have enjoyed all my life. We called it in those days the baptism in the Holy Ghost. It was to be baptized means to be whelmed over. That's what the Greek word meant. Not just dip, but whelmed over, to swim in those waters, those wet, moist places in the ethereal. Even the word born again, the Greek word again is anothen, where we get the English word another, ether, ethereal, out in the someplace. Born again isn't just repeating a few words after a preacher. It's actually having an awakening of your soul. So when I talk about astral theology, the stars, the upward-looking one, the lights that sparkle at night, we're all intrigued with darkness and night and wonder what we do with nighttime. What do we do in the dark places and spaces of our own soul? We'd be completely lost, except there's always stars and little hints of illumination. You can be going through the darkest period of your life, and I've been to many, many dark, deep, ugly places and spaces, but there was always some kind of hint of light. That's why we love the idea of moon. The moon, you only see the moon at night when it's dark, and the darker it is, the more clear the moon becomes. Same with stars. Sun, in the sun day, that's the brighter time, the brighter day. Everybody's a little bit more exciting. Saturn day is Saturn. Sun day is the moon, is the sun. Moon day is Monday. And most of our days and the names of our days and our months, even in English, are Greek and Roman gods and goddesses. There's always been this preoccupation with higher domains or higher dimensions or higher realms and higher rooms and higher spaces and places and paces and rhythms and regions and reaches of the soul. You want to go someplace. And I get really turned on when I start thinking about it, because it's so real to me. And I want others to experience this wonderful esoteric reality where it's like an out-of-body experience. It's the place that I go when I, in my natural mind, feel trapped and lost and confused and frightened. And as a grown man, I've felt that many times. I know how to go there. I know how to meditate. I know how to medicate my own soul without using any drugs. Now they're about to, they've actually legalized medicinal use of cannabis or weed here in the state of Oklahoma. Didn't think that would happen when I came here 40 years ago. Eventually, they'll probably support and ratify recreational drugs. They've done it in California, and I'm going out there next week. May the Lord strengthen me. Ain't nothing like a little brownie or something that they tell me. I've been a little brownie all my life, so I might as well relate to the brownie. I used to be scared of that stuff, but I'm not. Who knows, but there was some cannabis in the Garden of Eden, you know. I think John, who wrote the book of Revelation, they say was on something, mushrooms or brownies or something, because he was seeing 7-head horses and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, religion has its unconscious realm. And so, consciously unconscious, we can be spaced out. The stars, the planets, or the planets, planes of consciousness, plans of consciousness, planets, nets in the plan, getting caught up in things, in realms and regions and rhythms and in vibrations and syncopations and incantations and invitations and sometimes incitations. You get incited or excited, and you invoke or you invite things, energy, positive thoughts. And so people also did that with regarding things they didn't understand, like evil. So Astral is star in Greek. Theology is God logic, God language, or divine logic, divine language, and the God part of ourselves. Shamanism is a shaman and is very much like the most spiritual people in our culture. If you include African spiritism, it was the one who worked the juju. It was when you go back into the back country in Africa and the villages, and you would find these mystics, these shamans, these spiritual people, and you would go to that person for help, healing, even if you felt you were cursed or you wanted to curse somebody. They did evil and supposedly good things, you know, and so they ate from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And in their own estimation of what that meant, they did stuff. But shamanism is a person regarded as having access to and influence, or has some kind of fluidity, some kind of flow, influence and fluidity that comes from the idea of a flow into the world of good and evil spirits or entities or energies, especially among some of the peoples of Northern Asia, excuse me, in North America, like Native Americans and Eskimos and the Aleuts. I've been up into Alaska, and they have their various mystic forms. If you go to Europe, to Northern Europe, into the Ireland area you'll find the Irishmen and the Nordic peoples, and had they believed that their demons or their gods were related to water and the ocean. They have mystical apparitions and frightening things, but they have faith in all of that. If you go to the desert areas, then their gods are something related to sand and dust and sun and heat. People create their own gods. There is a God, we surmise, that creates, but we usually create our own based on our cultural identities and where we live and what our parents thought. It's called tradition, things that are traded down over the years. And there's a lot of people asking questions because we're shifting into we're in another millennium, another century, a new decade. 2000 was a major shift. We've come into the 21st century. We are 18 years into the 21st millennia. The 21st century, that's 100 years. And the second millennia since Christ. According to biblical chronology, there are 6 millenniums before that, or 4. And so, but according to science, we've been here millions of years. Now the scripture says, with the Lord a day is 1,000 years, and 1,000 years as a day. If you take that literally, which I'm not suggesting you should, but we'd be in the 7th day, or this going on the finishing the 6th day. So times and tones and tunes and where we are and what we're doing. Typically, shaman people enter a kind of a shamanic people enter a trance state during a ritual or a rite or some kind of ceremony or some kind of, and they practice the divination for healing. Well, I came up around people who went into trances, especially poor Africans or slaves back, 300 and 400 years ago. Our ancestors, we're told and taught, would go into those places, and because these were sick people who came over here from another continent, a totally different culture, and all they could do was bring their culture with them. And they couldn't just rush a slave to a doctor unless the owner wanted to do that, like to take animals to veterinarians today. But there were children and older people and men and women, and they had to learn from what they did back over on the motherland. They used herbs. They used plants. They use rituals and rites and divination and meditation and medication to treat the illness of their being human in another culture. People do that with drugs today. They do it with sugar. They do it with salt. They do it with caffeine. Some people shoot into their veins. They smoke pot or some kind of mushroom mixture. I think we're that way by nature. We become one with the universe and one with things. And so religion is based on that. Shamanism is a practice that involves a practitioner reaching altered states of consciousness. Again, when I was reading and studying that, I thought, I've been there without the use of drugs. Just my classical Pentecostal roots. I hear of the stories and I read the diaries of musicians and mystics in the realm. We understand that the alphabet was divined based on somebody on some kind of drugs. They came up with these letters. And of course later we learn about gematria and the number value of letters and how your name means something. That's very out there, but it's real. There's energy in a letter or in an angle or in an angel, which is a message, a sign, a signal, a signification, an insignia. We're looking for signs and wonders. We are signs and wonders. And the first signs and wonders were in the sky, in the stars. Pastor or pasture, the shepherds and the sheep. And shepherds were in the fields watching their sheep by night. And there the sky lit up and there was great intrigue. And out of those intrigues, I think some of those shepherds, if they, and I'm talking about in prehistoric, rustic, rural areas, if they took a plant or an herb to sleep with, and they were looking at the stars, just be real. Okay, I'm not trying to be crazy. They might have got a little high on something and felt some kind of connection to the sky, or felt their. I remember my brother snorting some, not snorting, but what do we do? Sniffing glue in the 60s. He was coming home. He had a little bag sniffing glue. That was big in the 60s. That was later on we learned about heroin and LSD and all those other hallucinative drugs. But my brother was sniffing glue. That's what poor folks could afford. And he said that he heard the voice of God calling him into the ministry. And it bothered me at first because he wasn't nothing like saved, like what we understood saved to be. Christian. My brother was always breaking the rules. If he would make up rules to break. He just wanted to see. So, but he told me that night, and for some reason, I believe that he went into an in-between space, and he, in his uninhibited self, he heard his soul. He heard from his soul. He heard the voice of God calling him to a higher level of thinking and ministry. I always felt he had more of the hand of God on him than I did. He's never felt that, but I always felt it. I always sensed there was something special about my brother. There are altered states of consciousness, and you go there in order to perceive and interact with what you believe or they believe was spirit. Humans have always felt a tug and lug to go towards spirit, to find what was happening in their soul outside of the physical realm. That's okay. That's wonderful, because I think we are homesick for our spiritual realities and interactions. We're homesick. We miss, in our slumber, this amnesia, we miss and sense that there's something beyond this realm. And that's what we're leading you to. So at this stage, when drugs are so prominent and people are talking about using weed and cannabis and having altered states of mind, I think this is the beginning of a brand new revival. A brand new spiritual renaissance. I think mysticism is going to replace religion, and that spirituality and science will combine, and that's part of the ComeMonday. That's the new moon thought, and that's the new mood and model and modality that will take over the culture. Religion will dissipate and disappear as we've known it, and we'll enter this new spiritual realm. I'm happy to be, even though I've lived 6.5 decades, and but I'm coming in on the beginning of this wonderful, and that's why I think I'll live longer than I would have anticipated, because I got to help be a form of a midwife. Something is birthing in the universe. Something is birthing in the earth. Something is birthing in consciousness. We've been pregnant for a while. People don't know how to identify. That's what the morning sickness, and people get up in a lull. This heaviness, and there's a shifting in our spiritual biology. In our spiritual physiology, there's a new energy. There's this transcendent world, and meditation and divination. Divination is just the practice of seeking knowledge, trying to divine or get the divine, divas or the diva. All that you hear about these divas. These are little goddesses. Sometimes the diva is a devil, but that is going somewhere into another realm of thinking to the divine. Or there's a diva in all of us. And if I say devil, I don't mean in a negative sense. There's an ability to divine or to be divine. And when some people are high on whatever drug they use, they feel divine. They dance more freely. They laugh and crack jokes. They lose their inhibitions. And some people won't even get up in a party and dance until they get high. We experienced that in church. They wouldn't even let us dance in the spirit unless it was in the spirit. We sit in the service and we would clap, pat our feet, the drums are going, the music was, and we would conjure. We would stay with that same song, beating the tambourine. Of course, none of us knew it at that time, but we were waiting till the Spirit showed up, till the Spirit moved. And when it did, it didn't matter about the race. I know a lot of folks who are not African-oriented at all, Caucasian, Hispanic, doesn't matter. When that thing happened, we danced all over the room. We cried. People spoke in tongues. People fell out on the floor. And folks do that when they're drunk or drugged. Sometimes it's not a pure hallucination, or they have visions. So there's some kind of preoccupation. Now we have cell phones and cellular structures around the planet. The cells and the souls and the multiplication of knowledge and information and the information highway and access. We have all this electronics, all this technology around us. Our children are born into an era with babies. They know how to hold a little cell phone early. They play with computers in the cribs. Those are the toys. We play with cowboys and Indians and sticks and horses and trains and trucks and stuff. These kids are playing with computers. They have no interest in a truck or a trailer. They want something electronic. They want something that is transcendent. And it's like these kids are looking through their phones into the cloud. The iCloud and the iPhone or the iPad, they're into their I amness, not by that terminology. When Moses in Scripture says to God, who is this speaking to me? I am is speaking to you. Who is I am? I am that I am. That was it. Jesus is quoted of saying, before Abraham was, I am. Who do people say I am? The Son of Man, I am. Who are you? What is your amness or your omness or your amen? I am. Om. Sounds and vibrations and syncopations and energies. I know it sounds a little mystical, but stay with me. I'm going somewhere with this, because we're going to talk about how the human history, particularly religious history, is infused with this whole idea of shamanism, this whole idea of extra sensual, extraterrestrial, extra sensory perceptions, ESP, going someplace other. Religion will probably never be completely taken away from humans. It somehow tends to continue to be one of our favorite toys, and maybe our favorite ploys. I don't think it'll ever completely go away. A ploy is sort of like a cunning plan or action designed, if you will, to turn a situation into one's favor. We're always looking for a ploy. But we have toys. We have things that appeal to the part that makes us laugh. And when we laugh, we release endorphins. endo and morphine. It deadens the pain. Endorphins, that are the natural release chemical in the body that comes with laughter, and it causes reduction of the pain. It deadens the pathos of living. So that's why I love laughter. The scripture says laughter doeth good like a medicine. I'm quoting the King James Version. A merry heart does good. Laughter does good like medicine. It medicates. Humor, it's wonderful. When people are sick, I always encourage people to put music on and humor. If people are in pain, put humor on, because that affects the psyche. It affects the psychology. So people are always going to be religious, so denouncing them or denying them or discriminating against those who espouse religion of whatever kind should be suspicioned. It should be censored. It should be disparaged and discouraged. Let people seek their own soul, whatever means they use, and at some point they will discover. It took me many, many decades of seeking and searching and wanting and questing, conquesting, and then questioning God, and asking questions about God or of the gods or of what is ethereal, for me to begin to get some answers. A little bit late in life, halfway through my life, at least, 50 years old. So religious clerical bullying must somehow cease. We got to stop being so mean to religions we don't understand or religious people. Now, we need to confront things that are detrimental or harmful or hurtful, but we don't need to, you can be a believer and not believe. You can be a receiver and not receive. It's wherever you are in life. It's wherever you are in consciousness. Now, there's astrology, and then there's astrometry. Again, and that usually implies some kind of polyistic thing, because you see all these gods up there, and it's frowned on by most traditional Christian authors. But astrology is any religious system founded upon the observation of the heavens. Now, we talk about heaven, we talk about hell, we talk about angels and demons and entities and spirits and access to the other worlds. That's that's some form of superstition. Paaster, again, I said paaster, it's the initial forms of worship. And in religion, astrometry, it's seeing those things as gods or godly or heavenly or ethereal or otherworldly, something that we were attached to ethereally and detached from physically. But we wanted that, and we still do. That's why you see all these churches with steeples reaching up. What folk don't know is the steeple originally was a symbol of the male phallic. It was suggesting masculinity. Then they start putting crosses on them. And it's like the Washington Monument is a symbol of the male phallic, the male-defining organ. And the whole idea of manhood and machoism and, those kinds of things are a little bit... a little frightening, a little intimidating. Somebody's being silly in the studio. We're learning how to be the steeple for God, see, and to stretch out. They've got devils there. Some people have the devil in them. Anyway, astrology is the worship of stars. Let me go to a brief Come Monday spot, because the devil had come in the room already. Here's a little spot about Come Monday, and I'll be back, and we'll have to wrap this up in a minute. Bye. Hello, everybody. I'm Carlton Pearson, and I am so excited about the beginning of ComeMonday.org. Come Sunday was the movie. Come Monday is the movement into broader enlightenment and life. And as a member of Come Monday, you'll receive one video each Monday for the entire year. That's 52 videos in total that you'll receive every Monday morning to get your week started out on a positive and powerful note. I will also be sending you one email each day, Monday through Friday, that will support the thought of the week. That's 260 emails throughout the entire year to inspire the genius inside of you. We will also provide a private Facebook group so that we can all come together in a safe environment and discuss personal, pertinent, powerful issues. You will also receive a digital monthly newsletter full of interesting updates and current events and exciting pictures. And I also want to offer you special VIP access to all of my events when I'm in a city near you, because I love to meet my people. And finally, we'll offer special pricing to cruises, concerts, live events, all for standing with us and becoming a ComeMonday member. So sign up now at the special introductory rate of just $3 a month. That's just $36 for everything for an entire year. I think I'm going to sign up for that myself. You're on your way to greater enlightenment. I want to meet you there in consciousness. So go to your phones and computers now. Sign up and meet me come Monday. Again, I want to close with this whole idea of Astrometry, and we'll talk about this and astrology, but I'm tying it into religion. I've been a very quote-unquote religious person all my life. What I mean by that is I've been very God-centered, Christ-centered, heaven, hell, entities, spirits, demons, whatever, angels, jinns or genies or ingenuities, the ingenious aspect. There's been like an intelligence that has a knowing that has accompanied me all my life. I felt a presence with me all my life as a kid. I didn't have a word for it except maybe God, because I didn't just feel the presence with me. I felt the presence in me, and sometimes the presence as me. I couldn't separate soul and spirit and essence. When I say your essential self, I mean your permanent rather than your accidental self. It's a little bit mystical. And I haven't had to take a drug to get where I'm thinking or where I'm going, because I can go to these places and spaces. We're not just multi-dimensional, we are interdimensional beings. We can go from one dimension or domain to another in seconds. I love the passage where Jesus is quoted to have said, "In my Father's household," means in the things of spirit, there are many mansions or dimensions, spaces and places and floors and levels, reaches and rhythms and regions. In the whole consciousness of the divine or divine mind, there is a lot of compartments. When we lose loved ones, and we do that all the time, and the older you get, the more every other day somebody's gone. They're just on another floor, in the same household, in the same ultimate realm, in the same ultimate reality. Our infinite being is in the time continuum, moving through it. Time doesn't necessarily move. We move through time. Time is permanent. Time is infinite. Time has always been. I mean, we cannot even think of a timeless reality. When time didn't exist. Some people call that God. When knowledge and intelligence and information and the expansion of consciousness or awareness, it's always been, it will always be. We don't know where. It's like a circle, a circular thing. We don't know where the circle starts. We can't tell where the circle ends. It's just this huge connection. It's called the lineage or the line, the lineage, as one line, like a thread that was woven into a marvelous tapestry. When you look at it from the backside, it looks like confusion. When you look at it from the front, by the design of it, it's a beautiful picture or portrait. It's something that's powerful. So astral theology and the Astrometry actually has to do with the worship or the observation, if you will, of stars and heavenly bodies and deities and sun gods and moon gods and planets and planes of consciousness and Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn day, Sun day, Moon day. All this stuff is part of us. We don't even know it because we haven't been taught this. We don't just spell words. Remember, words spell us, and words are things, as are thoughts. They have energy and vibrations. Sound, the Greek word is akos. English word is echo, sound out of the past. Hearing is akouo in Greek, English word acoustics. You hear sounds and you feel the beat and the rhythm, mixed syncopation, the cadence or sometimes the decadence going backwards into death or decaying, or the forward thrust of the soul. Excellence, that's forward thrust. The upward-looking one, seeking a better way of thinking. The term God is not a name. It's just a title referring to a belief or belief system that presents and proposes and indeed promotes the existence of spirit or of a spirit being. Sometimes people call it a supreme being or person or a supreme principle, a supreme reality. So when you say God, it's actually an abstract term. Now, when we say Jesus, we're talking about the name. You say Christ, you're talking about an ideology of something or someone sent, messianic, Mashiach in Hebrew, a sent one, a sent person or personification or personality, a sent or invented purpose. So the more we talk this way, we get out of religious restrictions and restraints and to a freedom of consciousness, a freedom of thought that's exploratory, that's interrogative. I mean, you're interrogating and asking yourself and your soul, the source, this force, this omnipotent and omniscient and omnipresent reality, this nameless, faceless, spaceless, timeless entity that we call God. It's pretty powerful. So does this proposed or supposed reality need or to be a person or need to be an entity? Can you experience your expansive self and expanded self without it actually being a person? Start trying to see God as not just a person, because then you have a lot of questions, and it's one of those Lucy and Ricardo things, like there's a lot of explaining you need to do God. If you're up there making a list, checking it twice, deciding who's going to make, that's not the God I see anymore. I just see this the wide expanse of reality, of intelligence, of source and force and power and love and kindness and compassion and relativism. Powerful. We're going to talk more and more about this during this whole series. I don't know how long it'll last, but you can actually go online if you want to just get the book and read it. It's Astrology and Shamanism. It's by Jan Irvin, I-R-V-I-N, and Andrew Rutazit. That's R-U-T-A-Z-I-T. I'll have all this on the site for you, so if you want to study it. But it's some deep stuff. I mean, many of you will put it down because it's just too detailed. But I couldn't put it down. I mean, it wouldn't put me down. I stuck with it. But if you don't want to read it, I'm going to be sharing it with you anyway. And we're going to expand. We're going to grow. We're going to enjoy the moon days and what light shines in the darkness. Let's focus on the light that shines in the darkness, because darkness cannot overcome light. It's always the reverse. Light always, I don't care how pitch black a room is, you light a little candle, the darkness backs away. Some more light, it keeps backing away. So the more light, the more illumination, the more brilliance, further the darkness has to go. That's how you make it through the darkness of life. I really love you. Believe in you. Thank God for you. Thank God as you. Your best is yet to come. See us again next time. We'll continue this wonderful teaching and exploration on astral theology. And this is ComeMonday. Don't you forget it. Join the movement. Become a part of the momentum. And make yourself as relevant as you could possibly be in this 21st century and in your now. Good night.